back to the vlog. If you have seen the last vlog, you would know that we played a really short course. So today we're changing it up and we're going to play it really long. So we are playing off the Black Tees at TPC's West Course. The West Course was the host venue of the CIMB Classic, so this is going to be quote-unquote a PGA Tour standard golf course. Obviously, conditions are always different every single day on a golf course, but we are roughly playing it around the same distance that they did when they played it over here. So that first tee shot, I pretty much bombed it. It was a really good shot. I think I carried that about 240, so that was a really long shot for me. I almost hit it around the same area that I would if I hit from the blue tee boxes, maybe just 10-20 yards behind. So after that, I only had 175 yards. So for a 175 yard shot, there are bunkers in front. I decided on using a 5-iron, which is actually supposed to be a good club for this distance. But as I said, I really hit that tee shot good, and I definitely was not expecting to be hitting an iron into this green on the first hole. As you can see, conditions are also very wet. And my second shot was a chunkaroonie. As you can see, clearly was not a good one, but I still made it on the green. So clearly a really long putt, but it is still a putt. This was a 66-footer, so we also did not really test the greens out, and the speed was unknown to me, so I tried to hit it a little bit harder, but it was still not reaching, so the greens were not playing as fast as they normally do today. After that putt, I left myself with about a 6-footer here for par. Not my usual tap-in, but still a par. And I will include the statistics that I am currently using. So for the new year, if some of you guys are interested in investing in a statistics app, this is one of the best in the market right now. It is called Upgame. And this is what I will be using to keep track of my stats this upcoming year. So as you can see, you can clearly see the entire map of the first hole. You adjust the tee box, you adjust the green, the pin on the green. And what I really like is you not only put where your ball ended up, but you also put your intended target. So then it shows you at the end, when you've collected enough data, it shows you your dispersion based on where you are aiming and where you actually ended up, which I think is a very important factor that not a lot of people keep track of, because sometimes we hit good shots and sometimes we hit mediocre shots that end up being good. So it is good to know your dispersion rate, and in that case you're able to choose better targets, you're able to have better misses, which is very, very important to shooting better scores. So with that said, let's move on to hole 2, which is a par 4 and a very, very long one. It's 444 yards, and one thing that you guys might notice is for this video, because all the tee boxes were basically pulled to the maximum today, perfect day for me to play off the black tees, right? So I did not have actually much space to put my camera. So most of the video is going to be shot a lot closer than it normally is, and because of that, some of them were not able to track the shot tracer, but I did include as many shot tracers as I could, because I know that most of you guys still enjoy having a shot tracer on there. So for this second hole, compared to where I normally hit from the blue tee box, the bunkers the further ones are definitely not in play, and the center one is in play. It is reachable, and I hit it directly there, but as you can see, I got lucky and landed in a gully, so it did not bounce. That was very, very close to getting in there, and if I am in that bunker, it is definitely not going to be a regulation hole, because if you can see from this video, it is a high bunker. It would at least be 200 yards to the green, so I would be hitting something like a hybrid, and I'm definitely not getting a hybrid over that bunker lip. So I got very lucky here to be short of the bunker, so I still had a look at the green. So I decided to go with a 5-foot. And I know that I've talked about this before, the aiming thing, and I know a lot of you guys are like, Jen, fix your aiming faster. Guys, if I could fix it faster, I would, especially on holes like this where there's water hazard down the left side and the entire left side is bunker lined. The tendency to aim right definitely comes back in there. Even for me, this felt like I was aiming more left than I was used to, and I still was aiming pretty far right. But anyway, my ball is dry. I am chipping. I am still going for the green in 3. Obviously, it would have been better to be on the green, but I do know that I can rely on my short game, which I think is going to be something that I'm going to be relying a lot on today since I'm playing such a long course, but we will see later. And for this chip, I'm hitting a 58-degree wedge. If you can see right around where the ball on the green is, there's actually a big slope that kicks right to left. So as you can see where I landed my ball, I landed it pretty far right and it just kicked straight left. But I'm definitely happy with that chip there. After that, I had about this 8-footer for par. Definitely not an easy one. So trying to hit a good putt here. And that I did. Save par on the second hole. Definitely happy with that one. And as we can see again, I will only show you guys this app for a couple holes because I think it's very interesting. But as you can see, first I adjust the tee box. Then I adjust where the pin position was on the green. And then I can scroll it in or out as much as I want. As you can see, that was the bunker that I was at. So my aim was actually a little bit left. And then where I actually hit it. So I also take a photo of my scorecard because it's a lot easier for me to remember the distances that I had and stuff like that. And also I draw the pin position on the scorecard so that I'm able to reference it when I'm doing my stats. So as you can see, it's very easy. I know a lot of people might be reluctant to do this because they think that it might take a lot of time, but it actually doesn't. All you need to do is create a habit of writing it on your scorecard, and eventually you will find that collecting stats is going to be very, very beneficial for you because then you're not only going to be able to control your dispersion, which I will talk more about later, but you're able to see what is your strong points. And this is actually an app that's used by Tommy Fleetwood, so if the best in the world are using it, why shouldn't you? So anyway, let's move on to hole 3. On this hole, you can actually see the blue tee box. It is just a little bit further in front than the black. So the aim and target and stuff of the tee is not very different, although all the bunkers down the left side are definitely not reachable from this tee box. I still do aim a little bit more right on this hole, and that is intentional. Because on this hole, on the right side, basically, obviously it's tree lined, but other than that, the right side is definitely more safe than the left side. So you just have to make sure that you choose a good target. My target's usually one of those bunkers out there on the right side, normally towards the right one, and then I just let it draw if it does, and if it doesn't, it's usually just over here in this slight rough, which is really not too bad. So for my second shot, obviously it's still a long way. It is a par 5, so I am just hitting a 3-wood. From this tee box too, because I am a little bit shorter, I can hit a 3-wood because I'm not able to reach that other bunker which is down there in the fairway. Whereas if I'm hitting it from the other tee box, that bunker actually comes into play, so I do usually hit around a 5-wood or a hybrid. But because of that, I actually end up around the same area that I normally do. So as you can see, I only have about 113 yards, which is a pitching wedge. So I think from the black tees, the par 5s actually aren't that different. Maybe the only difference is that on certain holes, if I did hit good shots on the par 5, with the tee shots I would be able to get close to going for it or even go for it. Whereas from the black tees, that's definitely not an option, so it makes it a 3-shot hole. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. So the pin position today was behind on this green, so I'm taking a little bit more because you don't want to get it all the way back there. So hitting a full pitching wedge here, as you can see. And I hit a pretty good shot there. And there's nothing better than walking up to the green and seeing your ball within tap-in distance. So I gave myself a tap-in birdie on this hole, and what a beautiful view. This is just one of the benefits of playing early in the morning, and I absolutely love it. So for the final hole that I'm going to show you the stats, as you can see again, it's very simple. First step is just to pick your tee box. Then all you do is scroll all the way up, put your pin position where it was, and then for me, I like to first zoom out because it's much easier. Put my intended target, put where I ended up, pick the club that I used, and then after that, for the second shot, it's very similar again. I can really see I had 113 yards, so it's very easy to place it out there. Which club I hit, and if the place that you live in is windy, you can also put more information such as the wind direction, so it is very specific. And for the putting too, it does include not only the distance, the slope, but also the speed that you putt on. So it's all very beneficial information for you. And anyway, we will talk more about it at the end of the video, where I analyze and show you guys a little bit more about the stats that was collected during this round. But for now, let's move on to the next hole, which is a par 3. So for this par 3, again, from the black tees, not that much difference. Obviously, you can see the blue tees up there on the right side. It is a good 20 yards in front. So other than that, it's basically, it's a par 3, right? You can't be much different. But anyway, I was actually a little bit in between club here. I took a 7-iron, which was a little bit strong, but I knew that if I took less club, it might be short of the slope, which is in front of the pin. But as you can see, was just a little bit over. Hit a little chip and gave myself a little tapping par. So let's move on to the next hole, which is another par 5. So as I said, the par 5s aren't really playing that differently, but for this hole, if I were to play from the blue tee box, if I hit a good shot and it hit that downslope, I actually have a chance of going for the green. From this black tee box, that's definitely not an option. But also from this black tee box, I can aim towards that right bunker and not be afraid to reach it. Whereas from the blue tee box, I actually have a smaller fairway. So there can be benefits to playing a longer golf course because some hazards might not come into play. Obviously, I'm below average for the distance of somebody that would play from the black tee boxes. Person that would like to play off the black tees, usually they would probably hit it at least around 260 to 280. So because of that, I do end up being short of hazards. As you can see, for the second shot after that, I'm just laying up, just using a 6-iron, just advancing it towards a good space out there and giving myself a good distance for my approach shot. For my approach shot, I had a 52-degree wedge into the green. So the pin position was in front today, so I had to take a little bit more club just to make sure that it did not end up short, because that's not where you want to go on this hole. And after that shot, I gave myself this putt. And obviously a clear misread there. I do find it hard to putt on this green when the pin position is in front, because for some reason it does not break towards the water like most holes do. Anyway, let's move on to hole 6, which is another long par 4, but I guess almost every par 4 is long from the black tees. So this hole is 420 yards. The goal here is obviously just to get it out there on the fairway. I had about 198 yards left to the green. It is an elevated green, so I'm hitting a 5-wood, and this is just a hole that for some reason I just like to go to the right side, and I do not know what it is. There honestly must be a magnet for Jen's ball there. If this is not your first time watching my videos, I truly apologize for the amount of times that you've seen me here. I promise that the next time I will try to go to the left side. So again, 58-degree wedge from my favorite spot on this hole when the pin position is here. The good news is I already know what kind of chip it requires, so after that just had a little tap in for the par. And clearly this is not something you should do. I just did this because, it was a short putt, and don't do this, guys. But anyway, let's move on to hole 7. Hole 7 is a decent length, and the nice thing about being from the black tees is, first of all, I do get to hit driver here. From the blues, sometimes I hit a 3-wood to make sure that it's short of those bunkers, but from this black, I'm able to just hit a driver, and I'm able to actually aim anywhere out there towards the fairway, because as you would know if you've seen my other vlogs, the ball just doesn't run very much at TPC. So with my carry distance, I'm not able to reach the bunkers from the black tees, which is kind of nice because it definitely makes the fairway a lot wider. After that, I had 141 yards. I'm hitting an 8-iron here. So the pin position today was behind and above this slope. So this green with this pin position is actually the most difficult. It's definitely not a pin position that you want to go for, because it is just a very small landing area, and in order to stay up on that slope, you need to land it above that slope. And chances are, if you land it above that slope, your ball is not stopping and you're going to go over. So it's definitely better to leave yourself below, short, and give yourself an uphill putt. Obviously, I left it a little bit too short, but after that putt, I had about this 4-footer left for par. And please pay attention to the shadow, because Diane is literally throwing her ball and her shadow is right over my ball as I putt. Thanks for the extra distraction, Diane.
Jen, you know aim left, Jen.
Sorry.
throwing the ball behind. It's like the shadow was like doing this.
But you aim left, you know?
Yeah,
Actually, broke left.
I got one more hole. I go first.
Yeah, this one cannot play with each other.
So I find that the massive difference between playing off the blacks and the blues so far is definitely that the par 3s are longer. So it is definitely a big difference between hitting even a 6 or a 5 iron versus hitting something like a hybrid and a 5 wood. That definitely increases your margin of error. So for instance, on a hole like this, you definitely want to avoid the left side. The pin today is in front right. So obviously you have a lot more space on the right side, especially if the bunker is somewhere that you do not like to go to. The left side here is clearly the first place you want to avoid. I actually hit a good shot there, but it just ended up a little bit short. As you can see, my ball mark is right in front of my ball, so even with a hybrid, which should technically roll more than an iron, it is not going very far. So I'm hitting a 58-degree wedge here because there is a little bit of elevation right in front of me, but I am hitting a lower chip, so I was expecting this to run out a little bit more, and I hit it decent. I landed it right after that slope like I intended to, but it just did not roll out that much, so I left myself with about this 4-footer for par. I mean, it is not a difficult putt, but you definitely want to be a lot closer. You don't want to give yourself these putts too often because these putts are nerve-wracking if you have too many of them. But that is also why we practice these putts a lot. So let's move on to hole 9, which this hole definitely becomes very nerve-wracking from here. Especially because, I mean, you can't really see it from the video, but from the left side of this tee box, it is very, very hard to tee off because the trees just come in so much, and obviously you don't want to tee off and face the water. So my intention here was really to hit a soft swing, as I think you can see that my swing was definitely softer here and slower because I did not want to try and hit it harder, which for me usually results in a little bit more of a draw, which technically would have been fine for this hole because the water is down the right side, but there is OB down the left as well. So you definitely want to make sure that you try to hit as straight as you can down this fairway because as you can see, I still got a 5 iron into this green. It was 170 yards, but it was straight uphill and all carry. I hit a decent shot, but again, my ball just did not roll out even with a 5 iron. So I ended up with this putt, which was pretty long, but it is still a birdie putt. So we will take that. And as you can see for my putt, it was a decent putt. It just was a little bit more speedy than I thought and did not break as much. So I had about this 4-footer coming back downhill. Definitely not an easy putt. And luckily, I drained that for a 1 under par on the front 9, so really not bad at all for playing from the black tees. So we have reached the back 9. The back 9 starts off with this hole, which is another nerve-wracking hole. From the black tees, I do hit a driver. So my aim here was really somewhere towards those bunkers on the left side and just hitting another slowish swing. So to be clear, when I say slow swing, I mean more of something like a fairway finder, something that I know is going to get me closer to where I want to be and to kind of reduce the mistakes. You should always have something like that in your bag so that you know that when you come down to narrow holes, you're able to hit something which is more likely going to give you a shot from the fairway. Some people might feel like they have to swing it harder, some people might feel like they have to swing it softer. So you really have to find something that's going to work for you. So for this third shot, I have basically about the same club that I would if I hit from the blues, because from the blues I actually do not hit a driver off the tee. So based on where I tee off with a driver and then hit a 3-wood for my second shot, I actually ended up about the same place that I normally would. So as I said again, from the front 9, par 5s aren't actually that different from the black tees. Again, for me, they just become 3-shot holes. So after that approach shot, I left it a little bit short. I took a little bit too much out of it, so I was left with this putt. It was an uphill putt, but obviously, as you can see, a complete misread. I did not know which way it was going because to me it looked like it was going both ways, and to be honest, I don't think it broke that much, so I probably would have been better just going pretty straight at it. But anyway, it is a tap in par. And let's move on to hole 11. A difficult par 3 for sure. From this tee box, it was playing a 198-yard shot. It was about 190 to carry the water. So the pin today was front right, which is definitely not very easy because in order to get it close to the green, you would pretty much have to hit something high enough that's going to stop. So I really had a couple of options here. I could hit a 5-wood and try to aim it more towards the right side because the water does come in more towards the left side. So it is a longer carry down the left side. So I could do that, but if I missed it a little bit, there is a chance that I would go in the water. So I decided to go with a 3-wood here, knowing that it's probably going to go over. I hit a really good shot there straight at the pin, but as I mentioned, it was going to go over. I got lucky as it landed on that upslope, which kind of killed the ball, so I was still on the green. And as you can see here, it got a very difficult putt. It's a 3-tiered green, so my main concern here was speed. So I wanted to make sure that I had the right speed, obviously, to give myself a good second putt. And speed was really good, but I did not get the line correct. And because of that, as you will be able to see, I had about a 6-footer, which to be honest was definitely makeable, but I just read the wrong line. I do not know why I thought it was right to left. I think it might have been a little bit because there were people behind and I didn't spend the time to read the line. But you know what, it happens sometimes, it's okay. It was a tough first putt anyway. So we've reached hole 12, and hole 11, 12 and 13 are definitely what I would call the handicap holes from the black tee box, because these holes are just long and there are a lot of hazards in play, and most importantly they're long. So hole 12 is 480 yards long, so that is really long. Although it is downhill, it is still a long ways to go. But from this tee box, I actually cannot reach any of those bunkers. So this fairway is another fairway that definitely becomes larger from the black tee box, which is nice.
I think that's so bad. No, I've never seen your ball come out so low in my life. I think that's so bad.
So as I said, and as I already knew, second shot was definitely going to be a 3-wood. I still have 226 yards to the green. There is water in front of the green, so you do need to make sure you hit more club, because if you don't carry that water, anything short is rolling back into the water. So I pured that 3-wood, but we could not see where it was going at all. It was too far away.
I can't see anything, my god.
Remember when I said that there's nothing better than walking up to your ball and seeing a tap-in birdie? Well, I almost holed that shot from 226. I don't know how that happened, but tap-in birdie on this hole, I will definitely take it.
You would have cleared the card. No, it's okay.
No, that's where I'm going.
That's literally where Jen's going.
So hole 13, this is actually not a tee box that is in play. This was the PGA Tour tee box. So it's kind of closed. They never really opened this for a black tee. But since we were doing the black tees today, I thought I'd show you guys the full experience. As you can see, this hole is 460 yards and it's fully uphill. So this is like literally a par 5 for me. I think if I'm not mistaken, I saw on the Asian Tour that they said that this is one of the longest holes on tour. It is definitely a very long hole. I was barely going to make the fairway.
Oh
Nice
yeah,
draw.
go past the carpet.
After that, I had 236 yards uphill to the hole. I mean, honestly, I should have just hit like a hybrid or a 5-wood to make sure that I was short of those bunkers, because of the amount of carry that I needed, there was no way I was going to get this on the green. But I still hit a 3-wood, so this was definitely something that I could have played better. Because I hit the 3-wood, I ended up, I hit it straight exactly where I wanted to go, but I ended up in the bunker in front of the green. And the pin is blue today, so this was a really long bunker shot, and I had to go past, it's a 3-tiered green, so I had to go at least, I think it was about a 50-yard carry, so we all know that's not an easy bunker shot. So I was hitting a 52-degree wedge here and basically just trying to get it as close as I possibly could. And honestly, I hit a really good shot out of there, but my ball spinned and did not roll, so I had about this 10-footer going back up for par.
Oh!
I wanted to make the par.
And as you can see, I clearly wanted to make that really bad, but you know, it's a tap-in bogey, which technically for me, this hole was kind of like a par 5, so really not a bad one at all. Let's move on to the next hole. Hole 14, for this tee box, I can actually hit a driver because to be in between the two bunkers, which is the ideal point, it was 240 yards to get there. Being a little bit downhill, that would be perfect for my carry. So I knew that this would be the safest club actually for me to hit, unless I wanted to hit it short of the bunkers. So if you know this hole, you understand what I'm talking about. But the best point is to go between the first and the second bunker, and there is water down the left side as well, so obviously going to the right side of this fairway is going to be better. And I hit a good shot there, left myself exactly where I wanted to, and after that only had 113 yards to the green, so that was a pitching wedge for me. Because of the lie being a little bit uphill, the pin today was front right, so I anticipated that this was going to draw a little bit because of the lie. But because it was also a little bit downhill, maybe it kind of counteracted because my ball went straight. So I ended up just missing the green right, so not ideal from 113 yards, but I had this chip coming back. I was using a 58-degree wedge here. Basically, it's going to be a fast chip and a big breaker right to left. So this was my chip.
Oh, nice.
Get in the hole.
In. Birdie, right?
And a nice bonus birdie there on the 14. So far I have literally went par, bogey, birdie, bogey, birdie. So let's move on to the par 3 15 hole. As I said before, the par 3s are definitely a lot longer from the black tees. This was playing 198 yards. Again, in front there are bunkers and there is a slope in the front of the green as well. So you do want to make sure you have the exact 198 carry because you don't want to be short. And I was aiming this a little bit right of the pin, but it was a little bit too far right and I got lucky that my ball didn't roll. If not, I would have probably been in that bunker or in the rough. But my ball basically landed there and finished there. So I had the option here of chipping or putting. But as you can see, there is a big slope down the right side, which if I putted, I would have had to putt through the apron, which was not ideal. I did not think that that would be good because it's a little bit unpredictable. And obviously with a chip, I'm able to take out more of the break. So I decided to go with my 58-degree wedge here and just decided to hit a little chip. It was decent, but I definitely did not take enough break. So I ended up being too low. And I had about a 4-footer left for par. Definitely did not leave myself in a bad position after the chip, considering how big of a break it was. But I just hit a bad putt there and ended up making a bogey for no reason. So that was definitely unnecessary. But let's move on to hole 16, which is a par 4. So for this par 4, I thought I would play it smarter by hitting a 5-wood and aiming towards the right side versus hitting a driver, which would be a smaller landing area. But I ended up hitting this way too good. As you can see, I thought I hit a good shot there.
Oh. Where'd it go?
Where is it?
How do I reach the cart path? Well, where'd it go? I don't know. It just went straight forward though.
So after hitting the cart path, I ended up over here. I actually had a little bit of space. It's just that it was about less than 100 yards to the green. And obviously because of that, I couldn't hit something high. So I had to hit something long. So I was hitting a 6-iron here. And there were a ton of red ends. So I was trying to get this shot over with as soon as I could. Because first of all, I didn't want to take a drop because I had an angle, right? So really trying to brave through this and just punch that 6-iron out there. I hit it pretty decent, exactly where I wanted it to be. And it was almost perfect, so other than being beaten by red ends.
Oh, freak, four red ends.
I actually landed it perfect. I considered that it would have bounced more on that downslope, but I got stuck in this rough. But it's not too bad. I'm just chipping a 58-degree wedge here and just landing it in front and letting it roll out because this was pretty speedy. So I landed it perfect and it definitely needed to land short, which is exactly what I did, and left myself with a tap-in par. So definitely a good save from the trees on this hole. And now we're down to hole 17. So as I said, and as you can see here, all the tee boxes are really pretty much pulled all the way behind today. So I couldn't even put my camera behind for this shot. But I guess you can see a front view shot instead. So for this hole, I decided to hit a 3-wood because obviously you can't see it from this angle. But there is a little, what would you even call it, like a river running through the center of this fairway. So you do want to make sure, basically you can either choose to go to the left fairway or the right fairway. From this black tee box, obviously I was going for the shorter option, so I was going for the right fairway. And because of that, if I hit the driver, there was a chance that it could reach that little river. So instead of doing that and bringing the river into play, I'm just hitting something short of that, which is going to be the 3-wood. So I hit that exactly where I wanted it to, and after that I only had a pitching wedge. As you can see, it's not a very long hole, so driver really wasn't necessary. and that is the river that I mentioned. It's not a very big hazard at all, but it does come into play if you make a bad club selection of the tee. So this pitching wedge was pretty much a full pitching wedge. Because the pin is in front today, if anything, you definitely do not want to be short, because anything short will come backwards and roll into the water. I ended up over here giving myself about a 15-footer uphill putt for birdie. So this was pretty much the ideal position to leave yourself in for this pin position. And when you leave yourself in good positions, you make some putts. So a nice little birdie down the 17 hole. So let's move on to the 18 hole. 18 hole is a really long par 5. It's 634 yards. So it's definitely a long carry, but from the black tee box, the bunkers again are not in play. So there is a bonus there.
Sorry, I didn't want to hit you.
Okay, so obviously can't blame this entire tee shot on them, but I definitely should have refocused and got myself back together. I mean, I did step off the ball, but I definitely was too fast on this tee shot and ended up just hitting it left. And that's exactly what happens when I go fast, so I know that that was my mistake. But I still ended up just in the fairway. It's just that I was really short. I got a bit lucky here because I clipped the tree and it came back. But this was a very long ways to go. So from here, I was hitting a 3-wood and aiming towards that right bunker because I knew that I couldn't reach it from here. So a little bit of a bonus, I guess, because if I were to hit a good tee shot, that bunker would definitely come into play. So after that, I still had 224 yards to the green, so a really long ways. This green is also elevated, but I'm hitting a 5-wood instead of a 3-wood here because of the lie. Because it is a bit downhill, I was expecting it to not go as high. So my 3-wood and my 5-wood can carry about the same distance if I really go full out on it. So because of that, I decided to hit the higher club, which is the 5-wood. And I hit a decent shot. It's just that I ended up hitting it a little bit too far right, that it ended up short in the bunker on the right side. Whereas I was definitely aiming for a little bit more of a draw with the lie, which did not happen. But, you know, it's okay. It was a long hole after the tee shot. So being in a bunker here wasn't too bad. Although I made a bad club selection there and definitely should have been hitting my 52. Because it was more against the edge, there was definitely more sand there. So I ended up just taking a little bit too much sand, which resulted in me being quite a bit short of the pin. After that, I still had about this 10-footer for par. And we all know that, you know, this kind of putts you just can't make all the time. So it wasn't a bad putt. I just didn't read the line correctly. So it was a bogey to end the game, but you know, it wasn't even par from the black tee boxes. Definitely wasn't a bad round, but I do think that there was so much that I could have improved. I think if you notice, most of my bogeys were actually avoidable, so that was definitely one area that I could improve. I definitely made a few course management mistakes which could have helped to shoot a lower score, but I'm definitely not complaining about the even par round. I did hit my 3-wood really good today, which really helped, obviously, because I did hit a lot of 3-woods today. So as I said before, let's look a little bit at my statistics. So after submitting the score, these are some of the statistics that you can see. So as I said before, these are the basic stuff, you know, there's the summary on the par 3s, I was plus 0.5, things like that. And here are the other categories that you can see in this app as well. So strokes gained, basically how many strokes that you would gain. And this is obviously a PGA Tour standard because strokes gained is compared to PGA Tour players. But in the long run, this app is going to develop to the point that the strokes gain is going to be catered to each player, so that will be exciting. But for now, it is still very interesting to see the statistics and to see what you can improve on specifically, and also, as I said, in terms of the dispersion, so that you know over here, as you can see, dispersion versus target line, you can see how far your dispersion is, and that will really help you in terms of choosing better targets. So choosing better targets in general is one of the biggest things with course management, right? And it's one of the things that's always discussed, because what you want to do is really to reduce your mistakes, to reduce that double bogey into a bogey. And the way to do that is to have good course management, basically. And it's definitely very beneficial for you to see your dispersion. Again, here, as you can see, the approach shot, your dispersion in the round. And obviously, this is just for one round, but eventually, as you gain more and more statistics and data, and as you input more rounds, you get more information that you can use to improve your game and definitely to improve your scoring. So the putting as well is something that I did not really show a lot of in when I was doing the stats, but as you can see here, there's a lot of stats that you can see. Speed versus distance, as I said, what is your speed control? Is what you need to work on your speed, or is it your line, or what? Basically, it really narrows down so that you're able to see what you need to work on. So if you're interested in purchasing this app, head over to the link in my bio and you will get a little discount from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you do decide to keep stats, please share with me your experience. I'm very excited to hear what you guys think. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.